I'm not in like horrible pain. I just know what labor feels like. I woke up today feeling like, yeah, I'm in labor. Hello. This is the birth story of our third born son, Campbell. Camp is what we call him. And yeah, I'm just gonna get started because it was freaking insane. So the day after Thanksgiving, I went in to the hospital because I was having so many contractions. They were like 3 minutes apart and I had been having them for like 5 hours. So this was like afternoon, evening time. Called the grandparents to come watch the kids, went in and they were like, oh yeah, you're like only 2 centimeters dilated, so you're good. Sent me home. And then the following Tuesday, I woke up with some much more serious labor signs. If you're feeling like this is TMI, probably not the video for you because this is gonna be TMI the whole time. But I woke up and I was bleeding. There was quite a bit of blood. So I called my doctor. I called my doctor because I didn't want to go to the hospital and get turned away again. They said to go in. They were like, yeah, if there's bleeding, you gotta go in. So I went in and they checked me again and acted like it was no big deal, and sent me home. I knew in my gut the baby was coming that day. Like I just felt it. So went and got a pedicure. I was out anyways, so I went to my friend's birthday dinner at Sushi and came back, felt like walking. So Billy and I, my husband, went for a long walk through our neighborhood and it was cold and I was having contractions, but I just felt like walking, so we kept walking. By the time I got back, I was like, okay, I need to get on my ball because these are like pretty serious contractions and I feel like it's gonna keep going. So got on my ball, folded some laundry as I always do right before I go into labor. I'm like that, for some reason, that's like my priority is to get all the laundry folded. So folded laundry and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get in the shower to deal with the pain of these contractions. So I got in the shower and I labored in there for like 45 minutes and Billy was tracking the contractions and I kept telling him like, I'm gonna be the boss of when I go in this time. I'm not gonna listen to the contraction counter. I'm gonna just like wait it out. Also, they kind of made me feel like I needed to wait until my water broke. So I was like kind of waiting for that, even though my water didn't break with either one of my other kids until I was like in labor. In the hospital, like about to have them. So I'm in the shower and he's like, Rach, you're having contractions every 90 seconds for the last 30 minutes. Like we need to do something. So I get out and I'm like, okay, well, let me just see how I feel. And then bam, the pain hit. I think that the water was just helping me a lot. I was in so much pain. I was like, okay, let's get in the car. Let's get in the car. I was like moaning and like screaming. By the time we got in the car, it was like midnight. I think it was midnight exactly. I was cussing and screaming. I could feel the baby coming out, like in my bones. Like I could feel it. I was like, go 100, go 100. And I was like, run through this red light, run through this red light. Billy literally was like going 100 and running red lights, like looking and running red lights. It was so bad. He called the hospital and he was like, we're about to be there. She's about to have the baby in the car. Just be aware that we're coming. And so we get there and they like give me a wheelchair to sit in and I couldn't sit. I literally was like, I got in it like this. Because I couldn't sit. It just felt so counterintuitive to sit. Like they pushed me into triage and I literally just took off my pants and I was like, this baby's coming out. Like I'm about to have this baby. And so they're like, let's check you, yada yada. Hold on, mama, let's check you. And they're like, you're only at a 7. And I'm like, no, the baby is coming. Get me my epidural now. And so they're like, we don't have a room and this room is the smallest in the hospital. I'm telling you, it's like 7 foot by 7 foot. People kept running into my feet. We're not gonna be able to get the anesthesiologist in here. And so I was like, okay, what do I do? Can someone help me? Like, I'm like, can someone help me? And so they're like, let's get the midwife in here. So they send the midwife in, and she looks and she's like, oh, I can see the head. And I'm like, finally, someone actually is listening that this baby is exiting my body right now. And I was so scared. I kept saying, I do not want to do it without an epidural. I don't want to do it without an epidural. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to do it. She's like, you're through the worst pain already. And they're not going to get the anesthesiologist here. You can do it without it. And he's coming. So I was not even, I had my shirt on still from like driving there. I was literally not in a birthing bed. I was in like basically like a room where they get your vitals, like where they do like your blood pressure. And the bed that they got me in was one of the ones that has like the little metal bars that they only like use for transporting you from like one place to the other. But it didn't matter. I had to get him out. I had to push him out. And so it felt so wrong to be like on my back, sitting, anything. So I was holding myself up on those bars, and one thing led to another, and the pushing began and the screaming began. I'm telling you, I did not like compose myself either. Like, I wish I could say that I was like, oh, the instincts kicked in and I just like did it. No, I was literally screaming, I don't want to do it this way. And I was yelling these like animalistic growls. It was horrifying. Billy was trying to hold my hand and my hand was shaking so much and I was like slapping his hand off. But yeah, it sounded like someone was sawing my leg off. Like I imagine like a guy on a battlefield with no drugs and getting his leg sawed off. Like, that was like the level of intensity that was happening from me. And so yeah, I pushed. Finally the water broke and his head came out. And then I was like, I had this sudden like fear-stricken like just doubt. I felt like I couldn't do it. I literally was telling everyone like, I can't do it. I can't do it. It's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna be able to do this. Like, what do we do? I was like asking people like, what do we do? I'm not gonna be able to do this. And the lady just said, you're gonna be able to do it. You have to do it. You have to push. And it just felt so like wrong to push, because pushing hurt is so bad. It just didn't feel like the thing I should be doing, but it was the thing I should be doing. And honestly, later, okay, first we'll finish getting him out. So I pushed, took like 3 times. Finally, they like pushed my stomach and like got their fingers around his shoulders and like he came out. Next thing I know, I have this slimy little blue baby on my chest. I didn't know the gender. Billy looked and he's like, it's a boy, which was hilarious because earlier that morning when I had gone in for the bleeding, a lady was like, she's not moving for us. She's kind of blocking the monitor. We need her to tilt over to the left. And he and I looked at each other and we were like crying, tearing up that we were gonna have a baby girl. So we like thought that we were having a girl, which I still didn't like believe it all the way in my soul. Like, I wasn't like completely sold. So he was a boy, but he was a not breathing little blue boy. Like, he was completely just blue. He was moving his arms a little, so like I wasn't like panicking like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. I just like was worried that they weren't getting him like activated, and like they kept like kind of like slapping his feet, rubbing his back, squeezing his core. Nothing was working, so they took him. And that is the worst feeling, like giving birth, especially after such a hard, horrible labor, and then they just take him. I felt like he was in the best hands. Billy went with them, and I was focusing on like delivering the placenta and making sure that my like tearing was sorted out. I didn't tear, not at all. And I feel like it was because I didn't have the epidural. When I had the epidural, I was just like, push. But when you don't have it, you're really mindful of like being careful, like easing it out. But I feel like that actually helped me to deliver more easily. They took him and Billy went with him, and they were actually able to get him breathing. They were squeezing him and doing, he actually filmed because he wanted me to know what was going on. So they were squeezing him. Then they finally put the oxygen mask on him. And this was like a special oxygen mask that had like more forceful air. So they put it on him and it forces oxygen down into his lungs, and he coughed up all of the amniotic fluid that was in there. And that's why he wasn't breathing, because they were like full of like practice breaths. They take practice breaths of amniotic fluid. And so he coughed that up, and then slowly they turned down the oxygen levels on the oxygen mask, and he was able to breathe on his own. However, when they brought him back into me, they're like, because he had to have oxygen, our protocol is that he must spend 2 to 4 hours in the NICU. And I'm like, can I be a total brat and refuse? Because I'm looking at him, he's breathing, he's rooting, he wants to nurse. I know the benefits of that first encounter of skin to skin nursing, sweet bonding time. And don't get me wrong, if he was still blue, if he was still having like a hard time breathing whatsoever, I would have been like, go, take him, do your thing. But no, I was a complete brat, and I said no. And he sat there and nursed and did skin to skin for an hour and a half, and then finally they got me a room. And once they took me up there, they were like, will you please let us take him to the NICU? If you refuse care for the entire time, DCF could get involved. And I'm like, what? You're just now telling me this? Also, like, all I wanted was some skin to skin. And so I said that. I was like, all I wanted was some skin to skin time and to like nurse him and be with him for a little bit. Absolutely. Like, if you need to monitor him and do anything extra, yes, I want what is best for him. I just thought that was kind of weird and like messed up that they said that, but protocol is protocol, I guess. So he went, and then everyone left. Billy was with him, everyone left. I had no IV, I had no medicine, and I was just in the room, sitting there.
Well, that was freaking insane. I don't even know where to begin, but Campbell is here. Oh, I almost had him in the car. Yeah.
On my own for like 2 hours. They said it was only going to be 30 minutes that he was in the NICU. But I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I had called my mom and I got off the phone with her. And then I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I could like fall out of this bed and die and nobody would know. I literally had to like get up and go pee on my own. I got back in the bed and I was like, I feel like I should be getting some care or something. Like someone should be checking on me. So I called the nurse and I was like, am I okay? And she's like, yeah, you're fine. Like you've gotten everything. We just did your vitals like an hour and a half ago and we gave you the ibuprofen. And yeah, just try to rest. And I was like, okay. And so I fell asleep and then they wheeled back in with Camp and Billy and the rest was history. Like we just nursed and snuggled and recovered. I mean, recovery was so much better than the birth process. Like my birth was honestly a little traumatic. Dramatic and traumatic. Gosh, just thinking back to it, like, oh, the pain, like when they say that the wrath of God for the first sin in Genesis is pain in childbirth, I get it. I experienced the wrath of God that day. And yeah, I would never choose to do that again. Like, no, I'm not. No, I wouldn't. Like, I wish I could say I was like one of those warrior moms, but no. Honestly, I'm just so glad that we made it to the hospital, because if I had had him at home or in the car and he was in the state that he was in when he was born, we would have had to give him mouth to mouth. We would have had to call an ambulance. I mean, they might have had to resuscitate him. But yeah, so camp is here. He was born at 37 weeks and 5 days on December 4th at 12:39 a.m. He was 7 pounds, 4 ounces, and 20 inches. And he's as healthy as can be. He is such a little champ eater, and he's really freakishly strong. And he has 0 bilirubin, which is no jaundice whatsoever. My pediatrician said that she had never seen that in her life. Everything is so great. It's so great. I'm so thankful, and I can't stop like being emotional about him being my last, but I'm just soaking up this time and just loving him so much. I'm just so grateful that we got to the hospital and got him the care that he needed. That's all that matters to me, honestly. All the pain and feeling like neglected, I don't care about that. He had the best care. Oh, goodness. Oh, here he is. He's so hungry. He's so hungry all the time.